Hey guys, and welcome back to Inspired by Jerica Brochet. We are continuing our journey through the Zodiac Signs, a mini series, and you have just clicked on the video for the Scorpio sign. If you are new to my channel, welcome and thank you for being here. There's a lot of information out there about the zodiac, so the fact that you clicked on my channel means a lot to me, so thank you very much. Um, let's see. If you are not new and you're returning, welcome back. I'm glad you're here. If you are starting on this video, or if the Scorpio sign is just the one that speaks to you, so you clicked on this one first, cool. But I definitely recommend that you go back and listen to the 3 videos that came before this, which is Aries, Libra, and Taurus, because we are journeying through the zodiac by polarity signs, and then also just talking about the progression going from one sign into the next. So the mini series is 6 weeks, and I have been releasing 2 videos per week, and the 2 videos being released would be the polarity signs. So we've already done Aries and Libra last week, and then this week we have been focusing on Taurus and Scorpio. So this is the Scorpio video. And I guess I should do a quick introduction. As the channel says, my name is Jerica Brochet, and I am an integrative healing arts practitioner. I am a certified Reiki master in the Usui method and a practicing astrologer. So there's a lot of information about me that's already on the channel, so I'll just leave it there for now, but you can definitely check those videos out too. And if you're into gaming, I have a gaming channel too, so check the description box if you want to check that out. Okay, so first things first, we will be only recognizing the main 5 planets, okay? So Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, plus the 2 luminaries, the sun and the moon, okay? So those 7 are the only ones that we will be referring to as far as rulership and the planets or stars in general for this series. So you will not hear anything about Neptune, Uranus, or Pluto, because that is more of a modern spin on astrology, and I practice traditional astrology. So just wanted to throw that out there, and we're going to do a quick astrology introduction, especially for those that are either new to astrology or just new to my approach or just kind of my thoughts on astrology. And this is just like my personal perspective, so it's not like canon or anything like that. This is just kind of how I roll when it comes to astrology. So we'll do that first, and then I will also do a quick introduction into the signs. So first things first, astrology derives from the Greek word astro, meaning star, and logos, meaning language, knowledge, or information. Astrology is the language of the stars and or knowledge that comes from the stars. Astrology studies the correlation between the movements of the celestial bodies, or the planets, and the terrestrial events that happen on Earth. And so it operates under the universal law of correspondence. So if you are familiar with the universal laws, or like the 7 hermetic principles, or you've read a book like the Kabbalion or something like that, then you're probably very familiar with the law of correspondence. But if you've heard the axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without, that is basically the law of correspondence in a nutshell. And so the idea is that you have this universal whole, and within that universal whole, you have like smaller wholes. So they're both whole systems, but you do have smaller systems within that whole system. And basically they mirror each other. And so it's kind of like, if you grew up with a religious background like I did, then you would have heard things like on earth as in heaven, that sort of thing. So yeah, astrology sort of works like that. And so whatever whatever or whoever is born at a particular moment in time, or when an event takes place at a particular moment in time, the idea is that that person or that moment or that event inherently has the qualities of that moment, depending on where the stars were or where the planets were at that time. And astrology basically describes the nature of those moments. And I want to say in the last video, I gave the example of the like a wine tasting. If you were to go, I want to say that they call that a sommelier. I hope I'm saying it right. I think it's a sommelier is what they call it, but like basically like a person who is an expert on wine. And so just by tasting the wine, they will be able to tell you the year of the wine, the vineyard that the wine may have come from, or what part of the world that the wine was created in. And astrology is sort of like that. Like looking at the birth chart, you're just able to tell all this information about a person or an event. And it's really cool. So let's jump into a quick intro about the zodiac signs in general. Zodiac derives from the Greek word zodiakos, meaning circle, or the circle of little animals. And the signs are actually birthed from a combination of interactions between the four elements, which produces the four seasons, and then the modalities in which they operate. So, there are four seasons for the most part. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you experience what should be four distinct seasons, if the powers that be aren't, messing with the weather. But typically you'll have your four seasons, and each season will have a beginning, a culmination period, and then a transition period. And that beginning, middle, and transition is what we call in astrology like the different modalities. And so when you combine the four seasons plus the three modalities, 4 times 3 is 12. That is how you get the 12 zodiac signs, okay? And so, contrary to popular belief, the signs are not the stars of the show when it comes to astrology. It's actually the planets, but the signs do give a lot of flavor to our chart, and they're really the environment, and they become a mode of expression for which the planets themselves, which are the true stars, can actually be expressed. So that's astrology in a nutshell. And so we are going to be interpreting 4 main things in regards to what we're going to use to get to the essence or the essential qualities of what a sign is, like why Scorpio is Scorpio, what makes the Scorpio energy. And so we're going to be looking at the gender of the sign, the element, the modality, and the planetary ruler. So for oh my gosh, I skipped the whole slide. Sorry, you guys. Let me go back. We weren't supposed to see that yet, but that's okay. So for Scorpio, the big 4 is what I call the big 4. The gender for Scorpio is yin. So Scorpio is a yin or a feminine or a nocturnal sign. The element is water. The modality is what we call fixed or solid. So when we talked about the seasons, that beginning, middle, and end, fixed and solid would be the middle of a season. And then the planetary ruler for Scorpio is Mars. Again, traditional astrology, it is Mars, okay? Not Pluto. All right, so let's jump into yin. What is yin? What does it mean? Yin energy, so if you've seen the yin yang symbol, especially if you are familiar with more Eastern approaches to either spirituality or philosophical concepts, then you probably come across yin and yang. And so yin energy is repressive. It's going to be receptive. It's internal. It's way more introverted and more guarded. It's very subtle in a lot of ways. Sometimes it can be hard to describe yin because yin is like everything which sometimes you cannot see because of those subtleties. But as with the yin and yang symbol, yin also has a little bit of yang in it. So it would be also the matter. If we're talking about spirit and matter, the yang symbols or the yang signs would be spirit, whereas the yin signs would be matter. And so yin is definitely going to be felt, or yin energy rather, is going to be felt more so internally. And Scorpio is a yin sign. A lot of people may not know that, or they may not think that. And we'll go into why a little bit later. But yeah, yin sign for Scorpio. Scorpio is also a water sign, okay? Water is generated from the temperament qualities of cold and moist. So we've talked about in the previous videos about how the interactions between hot and cold actually produce a more passive quality, which would be moist and dry. And so for Scorpio and the water element, it is generated from cold and moist, and the interactions between that, as opposed to the qualities of cold and dry, which we talked about in the Taurus video, which is of the earth element. So the influence of the cold quality, is actually what gives Scorpio that contracting and density and its absorbent attributes. That's what you're basically describing when you talk about water. It is absorbent, it is receiving, it is very dense, right? Like if you were to consider, like water gets really heavy, right? Like a jug of water, you hold water, there is weight to it, there is density to it, and that comes from the cold quality. And then the moist quality is what influences the adaptability, the malleability of water, because water can take shape into whatever you pour it into. So it's very adaptable, and it has plasticity in that way to where it can change and move and flow. And so water as an element tends to be non-molding. You know, if you were to pour out a glass of water onto a table, it's just going to go in a whole bunch of different directions. There's no boundaries to it. It's just going to do whatever. It's just kind of how it goes. And so then you have, oh my gosh, you guys, I forgot to change some of the wording on the slide for this. So I will probably have to put it in the description below. And that's what happens when you copy and paste too much. You leave stuff out and you forget stuff. So do not look at the description that you see on the screen for water, because that's not it. Oh my gosh, you guys, that's the one left over from the Taurus video. So I'm sorry about that. I'll fix that and it'll be correct in the description box, okay? Scorpio is a fixed sign. As we mentioned, it represents the middle of a season. And for Scorpio season, that's going to be autumn. So Scorpio energy really gives us the thick of what the temperament or the energy of autumn actually feels like. And so fixed energy maintains, it likes to conserve things, and it really does have follow through. Whereas last week when we talked about Aries and Libra being cardinal, or the beginning of a season, they tend to lack follow through. They like to get things started and then they don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. But when you're talking about fixed energy like Taurus and Scorpio, you're talking about something that's going to have a bit more of a lasting effect and more longevity. So the fixed, or the culmination of any season, is where you're going to get the true essence of what that season is going to feel like temperature wise, because you have more consistency in the temperatures during that time. And so there is a consistency to Scorpio energy. There's this dependability and this ability to be stable and reliable, which a lot of the fixed signs will have. Water signs also carry the phlegmatic temperament. I know I mentioned in the last video, I started going into the 4 different temperaments that you have. And there is choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and what's the fourth one? Melancholic. So sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, and melancholic. But the water signs do carry the phlegmatic temperament, and it sounds just like the word. Like when you hear like phlegm, right? You think mucusy. So like if a person has is very water dominant in their chart, they are probably a little bit snotty. You know, like they like when their energy is at dis-ease or they're experiencing disease, it's probably mucus based or phlegm, right? So phlegmatic. So that's going to give water signs a greater focus on emotionality, subtleties. So the things that are, water signs tend to be able to pay attention to the things that nobody else is thinking about. And that's a part of that yin and the subtle part of a water sign. And security is very important to water signs as well, specifically emotional security. And so you will see these types of traits actually mirrored in the other water signs of Cancer and Pisces as well. So let's see. Okay, so we did talk about Scorpio season a little bit, and I want to double back to that just to say that right before Scorpio season is Libra season. And as we talked about in the Libra video, you have the Libra equinox and or the not the Libra equinox. Oh my gosh, you guys, the autumn equinox. So yeah, Libra season, we've just had the autumn equinox, and the autumn equinox is what has ushered in the change of the days getting shorter and the nights getting longer. So by the time you move on from Libra season to Scorpio season, we are going to have this increasing presence of cold energy, okay? Because as the heat is decreasing, the cold is increasing. And as I told you guys, the interaction between hot and cold is what generates the passive qualities of moist and dry. So as the cold is increasing, since we are losing the light of the sun, then moisture and cold is increasing. So again, our days are becoming shorter and our nights becoming longer at this time. And so this actually, if you look out into nature, we know that this causes a falling away of the presence of life. So during Scorpio season, you see things decay, right? It's fall. Our leaves are falling. A lot of our beautiful trees are turning brown, and the flowers are gone at this time, and things are just, there's like this heaviness that just kind of sits present during Scorpio season, and it just, things just seem to be settling or slowing down in some sort of way. So that's the fixed version of autumn that Scorpio brings. And then we have Mars, okay? So Mars is the planetary ruler for Scorpio. And a lot of people are not familiar with that. And they tend to not be, because if you're into modern astrology, then you've been taught that Pluto is the rulership. But back in the day, okay, the ancients, they recognized Mars as the ruler of Scorpio. And I think by understanding Mars, you'll be able to see the connection there. And some of those attributes have been reassigned to Pluto. And there are some consistencies, and there is some stuff that you can resonate from Pluto, and I understand that, but Mars is where the sweet spot is, okay? Because Mars possesses the qualities of hot and dry. And so if I've just explained to you guys that Scorpio is of the cold and moist, but it's ruled by a planet that has a temperament of hot and dry, then when you add that together, you're going to get boiling water, right? Or hot water, because you're adding this hot influence from a fiery planet like Mars to a water sign that is already cold and moist by nature. And so Mars's influence on Scorpio is where we get the sting from Scorpio, right? Like the animal or the symbol for, or the zodiacal symbol for Scorpio is the scorpion. Okay. And we know that the scorpion has the stinger on the tail. And that sting is very, very influenced by Mars. And Mars is a planet that is about action and drive. It's about friction and irritation. Mars likes to have something to fight for, something to do. So it creates tension and aggression and separation. But, Mars energy is where we get our will to fight for things, to fight for our rights, to fight for our will, and just that passionate drive to want to get up and do something. We get that from Mars. And so you're going to see that influence on Scorpio. So let's talk about the essence of Scorpio now, because we talked about the gender, the element, the modality, and the planetary ruler. So then when we merge the four of those together, that's when again what's going to give us the energetic essence of Scorpio energy. So Scorpio then becomes an energy that is emotionally dependable because of that fixed and that solidness. It's trustworthy. So if you're a person that is either has sun in Scorpio, your ascendant is in Scorpio, or maybe your moon is in Scorpio, then you might resonate with people wanting to, like, this therapist vibe where people just want to tell you all of their business. They want to confide in you, or they feel like they can trust you in some sort of way. And that's because that water element is the emotions, but then you have the fixed modality that is that dependability. Scorpio is going to show up for you emotionally. They tend to be reserved. So a person that has a lot of Scorpio energy is going to watch before they speak. They're going to be the ones in the corner of the room observing and taking everybody in. And a part of that is because the Mars influence is strategic, so they're scouting and figuring, they're looking at the exits, they're looking at body language, all of that, because they're protective. Remember, Mars wants something to fight for. And so Scorpio is going to be on the defense. They're going to be like, hold on, let me scout my atmosphere and see what's going on. Let me get the lay of the land. They're going to be a bit stubborn, especially emotionally. And again, that's that fixed energy. So Scorpio energy tends to be very stubborn with changing their emotions. They feel how they feel, and they're, even if they're wrong, okay, they're going to be solid in being wrong, and they're going to be okay with that, because to them, it is what it is. They can be a little bit defensive and possessive, and again, that comes from the fixed modality as well. That longevity and that long lasting, there can be a tendency to hold on to things too long. And so sometimes Scorpio energy wants to possess the things that they feel like belongs to them. If they feel like they have invested emotionally in someone, you belong to them now. They feel like they have some sort of power over you in some kind of way. But they also can be very patient. That's that fixed influence as well. My astrology teacher gave me this, and I'll never forget, like, being able to determine the difference between the Mars ruled sign. So Mars rules Scorpio, but it also rules Aries. And the difference between the two is that Aries energy is going to be warrior like. Aries energy is going to be like, rah, charge forward, we're at war, let's get them. Whereas Mars ruling Scorpio energy is going to be way more calculated. It's going to plan, and it's more of the ninja versus the warrior. So you're going to get that very secretive and calculating, careful, because it's intuitive. Remember, that water element is going to have influence as well, but then calculated. So when you add intuition plus strategy, you get manipulation. Okay. So on the challenging side of Scorpio, it can be a little bit manipulating, okay, if not careful. So Scorpio has to be careful of not falling into that. And that's just that Mars influence, wanting what it wants and having something to fight for by all means necessary, okay? So go back to the other slide or rewind the video to be able to go back and look at some of those Mars keywords to better understand that. And then self-sabotage. That's Scorpion. If you know anything about Scorpions, you know that they will sting themselves to death with their stinger before they let any other animal try to attack them or eat them or be anybody's dinner, okay? And Scorpios have that same quality. They do have a tendency to self-sabotage because they're going to go out fighting. That's the Mars influence. Their whole thing is, I'll kill me before you kill me. It ain't happening. So there can be a tendency for them to ruin things for themselves by getting in their own way. And water has memory to it. And so having that fixed modality, Scorpio tends to remember what you did to them. They're going to hold on to it. And sometimes it's to their detriment and they can self-sabotage because they're holding on a little bit too much, a little bit too strong, okay? Planets visiting Scorpio's domain. They're going to be investigative. They're going to be very deep, sensitive. They're going to be, again, protective, and they're going to have a fixed outlook on life. It'll be hard for them to change their feelings. When they're in a mood, they're in a mood, and you just kind of have to let it, pass by a little bit. Like I said, you guys, Scorpio with that Mars influence, you'll either get frozen water, because we know there are different states of energy that water can change to. You have the gas form, you have the liquid form, you have the solid form. And Scorpio would be like the solid form. It's like frozen water. Or because of that Mars influence, it can be boiling water. So you really do have like these extreme experiences with Scorpio. And that's where it sort of has that intense experience, or people feel like Scorpio energy is so serious or just so daunting or intense on people, is because you're either going to get a real frozen version or you're going to get a real fiery version, and they have both. Both of them are in there, okay? And so there's that transformational energy that a lot of the modern astrologers or people who follow modern astrology attribute to Pluto as far as being transformational in that way. And that's just the extreme nature of having a hot and dry planet of Mars ruling a sign that is of the water element, which is cold and moist. So Scorpio definitely prefers to be solid and consistent in its feelings. And, like I said, there can be a tendency to hold on to their feelings, which is, where they tend to hold grudges. And you know how they say, with Scorpio energy, you don't want to piss a Scorpio off because it's like you'll lose them forever. And it's because they are emotionally attached to how they feel. They feel how they feel, and they're protective over their feelings. And they're very selective about whom and where they choose to be vulnerable, or where they decide that they want to show vulnerability. And actually, in medical astrology, Scorpio rules the genitals, right? And so, everybody wants to say that the Scorpios are freaks. They freaks in the bed and all of that. Give or take, that could really be a lot of signs, quite honestly. But I think the reason why people tend to say that for Scorpio is because Scorpio has a desire for intimacy, and that's the water element. It wants to go deep. Scorpio wants to get into the most private and the most intimate parts of your thoughts and your mind and your feelings. And this is a way of connecting. Okay. So that is why sometimes Scorpio energy can be a little bit overwhelming for people, and people feel like they're drowning, when they're overwhelmed with the Scorpio energy, because that's how they connect. They want to go deep, and that Mars influence is like go big or go home. And they're going to go big when it comes to getting deep. And that's just Scorpio. So yeah, just know, guys, that different planets in the sign of Scorpio are going to act differently. Remember that the signs are just the flavor. They just kind of color the expression of the planet. So the planet is still gonna planet. And so there is a difference between the expression of having a sun in Scorpio, your ascendant sign in Scorpio, versus moon in Scorpio, or any other planet. So but before we get into, and I will say, wherever you do have Scorpio in your chart is probably going to be an area where you are a bit possessive. So we are going to go through the rising signs in just a bit, but keep that in mind. If you don't have a copy of your birth chart, pull it up right now. If you don't have it, you can go to astro.com, create an account, and you can get your chart for free. Okay. So before we jump into the rising signs, I do want to talk about the polarity for Scorpio, which is Taurus. And so you probably heard some of the similarities already, but I do want to hone in and just bring a little attention to it. Okay. So when we're talking about polarities are just two sides of the same coin. Okay. Or things that appear to be opposite or contradictory in nature, but they're not. They're really just two extremes of the same thing. So they are identical in nature, but they differ in degree. And so with Scorpio and Taurus, they have a lot in common, but then they have a lot that is very different about them too. So what makes Scorpio and Taurus energy very familiar and similar is the fact that they are both yin signs. So remember that introvertedness, the receptivity, and the guardedness. So that comes from yin, okay? That intuition and that just ability to sense the subtle things about people. It's yin. Both Taurus and Scorpio have that yin ability. And then they're both fixed. So that's where you're going to see stubbornness on both ends, okay? Scorpio is going to be emotionally stubborn, and then Taurus is going to be stubborn about the more practical or material aspects of life. They both have that. And then, of course, where you see their differences is the fact that Scorpio being ruled by Mars, whereas Taurus is ruled by Venus. And you know how you've heard the saying growing up, boys are from Mars, girls are from Venus. That it's those stark differences, because Venus is more about cohesion and bringing things together and pleasure and getting along and love and beauty. And Mars is everything opposite of that. It wants tension, it's agitation and irritation. It wants to fight. So you can see how the influences from the planetary rulers also can teach you the differences between the polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. And then, of course, their elements are different. Taurus is earth and Scorpio is water. And we have talked about that. We know earth is immovable, it's solid and unshakable and unyielding, okay? Whereas water flows, it lacks boundaries, it can go wherever. And so the polarity of the two of them, they do definitely have something to offer each other, okay? Scorpio as a water sign offers changeability and intimacy to explore feelings to Taurus, where in Taurus lacks that. And I know talking about Scorpio as a fixed sign, it doesn't sound like it can change, but it does change in the way of transformation, okay? So being able to go from boiling hot water to frozen water, both of those are present with Scorpio. So Scorpio does have changeability, and the ability to be vulnerable and to go intimate with somebody is what Taurus would lack. But Taurus, as an earth sign, offers form to Scorpio because Scorpio wants to go so deep, and Taurus is like, let me give you a floor to that ocean because you're going too deep and there's no end, there's no bounds, there are no boundaries. So Taurus energy gives form to Scorpio and basically becomes a container or provides a container in which Scorpio can put those feelings and give shape to them and have an understanding of where they're coming from, why they're having the feelings that they're feeling. So that's what I love about talking about the signs and polarity, you guys, because it really gives you an understanding how your whatever sign is opposite, they are identical in nature. And by understanding how they are the same, it stands out more where they are different. Okay, so now we can get into where you have Scorpio in your chart. Where is Scorpio energy in your chart? And so I'm sorry, the glyphs that you are seeing on the screen, they are backwards. And again, that's just because of the image that I had to use. I had to flip it and twist it and reverse it to get it to show up as a Scorpio rising chart. Okay, so bear with me. All right, so we're going to go through each of the signs by the rising sign. Okay, so starting off with Aries rising. If you are in Aries rising, meaning you have Aries on your first house, this means that you have Scorpio on your eighth house. So you're going to experience Scorpio energy in regards to other people's stuff. Okay, so you may be a little bit controlling of other people's stuff. You may be a little bit more protective when it comes to sharing your resources. You may be a little bit more protective of letting people get into your mind or really get into the deep psyches of your thoughts. For Taurus rising, you have Scorpio energy on your seventh house of relationships, marriages, commitments, or partnerships. And so you may find that you are a little bit more emotionally stubborn in your relationships, Taurus rising. So you're going to need to be a little bit more flexible, okay, with being able to change your mind about your feelings sometimes. And you may be a little bit possessive, Taurus risings. So look out for that. But it does mean that you love deeply, okay, and that you're very loyal to the people that you are in relationship with, whether they're platonic or romantic. For Gemini rising, you are going to have Scorpio energy on your sixth house of duty. This is where you feel a little bit of a slave to your work, or a slave to your schedule. This is where you're very altruistic. And this is also the house that represents our health, okay? And what it is that we do for a living, the grind that we do. So for Geminis, you may be very dedicated and committed to the work that you do. You may feel like people talk to you a lot. People are open. You may often feel like a therapist to people, having Scorpio on the sixth house. You may be moved by how you feel for the day. So your routine and how you move about probably depends on how you feel at that time. For Cancer rising, you're going to have Scorpio energy on your fifth house of self-expression. So you may get really deep into the things that you find yourself connecting to from a creative standpoint. So the things that you come up with, your imagination may really go deep and have a lot of purpose and meaning behind it. Cancer risings, you probably also like, kinky sex, or you might like to really have intimacy with sex. For you, sex isn't all that casual. There's purpose and meaning and connection behind it. Leo risings, you are going to have Scorpio energy on your fourth house of family and the private self and your upbringing. So with all that Leo energy being fiery and vibrant and everybody look at me, in the very privacy of your home, you like things to be emotionally dependable. You want to be able to depend on your partner. You want your home to be a place that is the same, you want it to be a place that you can be able to be vulnerable and show the parts of yourself that nobody sees. And you're probably very protective of your home and those that dwell in it. For Virgo rising, you're going to have Scorpio energy on your third house of daily rituals, your local environment, siblings. So for the Virgo rising, you may like a little bit of consistency to your schedule. You may actually have a very spiritual daily ritual that you like to do, and that's a part of just that planning and organized part. You liking to have things in order and not really wanting to deviate from it very much. This is also how you take in and process information. And so Virgo risings may tend to get very deep and they really start thinking deeply into the things and how they process things. For Libra rising, you're going to have Scorpio energy on the second house, okay? And so this is your resources, how you earn money, your spending habits, and things that you find valuable. So you may be possessive over your stuff and protective over your stuff. You have a deep emotional attachment to the things that you own or the things that belong to you. And there's a purpose behind the things that you spend your money on, and they have value to you. I have this placement myself, and when I tell you guys, listen, my forgiveness language, I don't know if you guys have heard of the 5 languages, the 5 love languages. Well, there is a 5 forgiveness languages too by the same guy, Gary Chapman, and mine is restitution. Your apologies mean nothing to me if you break my stuff, okay? Or you ruin my stuff. However, give me the money so I can replace it, because to me, there was a purpose. I had a purpose for whatever it was that I spent my money on, okay? So that's Libra rising. Scorpio risings, this is the first house for you. So you're going to feel this energy very personally. It's going to be in your personality, your behavior, your vitality, and your health. Okay. So you may be very phlegmatic. You may, especially if you have certain allergies to things, you may snot up very easily. You as a person, you love hard, and you definitely expect that from others. There is a bond and a tight knit sort of, almost like when people are interacting with you, it's like they sign up for life. With Scorpio risings, there's deep attachments with yourself and with other people. Sagittarius rising, if you have Sag rising, you have Scorpio energy on your 12th house, and the 12th house is the shadow self. It's the privacy of the psyche and the unconscious, and water energy can be very unconscious. And so as vibrant and large at life as Sagittarius energy is, they have an unconsciousness about them that is very deep. Sagittarius is fire, so they tend to like things to be light. However, in an unconscious way, you can be very deep. And sometimes, this being your place of self-undoing, you can be a little bit self-sabotaging in some ways that are unbeknownst to you. Capricorn rising, you have Scorpio energy on the 11th house of friends, groups, social interactions, and like-minded people. So for Capricorn rising, the people that you tend to come into contact with, I think that the bond would probably be very good. There is a loyal commitment there, and there is an emotional attachment. Again, loving hard. People can trust you. Your friends feel like they can trust you and that they can be vulnerable with you. Aquarius rising, you have Scorpio energy on the 10th house, and that's the house of career, the public self, your reputation, and your responsibility. So Aquarius rising, this is where you are in the workplace, and these are your investigators, these are your therapists, these are the people that are okay with going deep and getting to the bottom of things and trying to figure out why things are the way they are, because Aquarius energy likes to recognize something, they eat the meat and they spit out the bones because they want to be innovative. And so your reputation could be very emotionally reliable in that sort of way. Pisces rising, you have Scorpio energy on the ninth house of spirituality, higher learning, long distance trips, philosophy. And so you probably feel very connected to the spirit world. You probably take your spirituality very seriously. There's a depth and purpose and a lot of meaning and a lot of transformational experiences that you may have. And you are probably very devoted to your spirituality, or when you do find that you are expanding your knowledge or getting to a higher experiencing higher learning or going on long journeys and trips, there's this sense of purpose to it that is very deep for you and very spiritual and emotionally meaningful for you. So again, guys, went through all of those based on your rising sign. Okay, so this may or may not resonate for people who have sun in Scorpio or moon in Scorpio. Okay, this is the rising sign, which means whichever sign you have on your first house. Woo, you guys, that was a lot. But we've come to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This one definitely got long. We're already at about 45 minutes, so I'm trying to wrap it up. But again, my name is Jerica Brochet, and I am a spiritual maven, astrologer, certified Usui Reiki master, and a certified integrative healing arts practitioner. And I want you to get to know yourself energetically. So right now, at least at the time you're seeing the video, I am offering a simple 45-minute to an hour video reading doing a energetic personality analysis of your birth chart. So if you are interested, definitely shoot me an email. There is some information in the description box below for you to figure out how to get in contact with me if you're interested. And then please follow me on social medias. My social media handle for Instagram is on the screen right now. It is at msjerib. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, and I will see you guys next week for the next set of polarity signs as we continue our journey through the zodiac. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.